UFC 229 is in the books, and Khabib Nurmagomedov is still undefeated. He is still your lightweight champion, and you know what? Nobody's talking about it right now. There's too much other craziness to talk with John Morgan, Mike Bond, Steven Morocco, all of MMAjunkie here in Las Vegas. And after what was a fantastic performance by Khabib Nurmagomedov, the wheels fell off of it with a brawl erupting between the two teams. I was cage side. It started happening a few feet away from me. But honestly, Mike, you were in an overhead position. You had kind of a better bird's eye view of the whole thing. Just give me an idea of kind of what you felt as you were watching this thing unfold and what it looked like was going on.
Well, it's crazy because once the fight wraps up, we're doing our work and stuff, so you're kind of looking down at maybe the computer, and then you see Khabib run over and jump the fence. And then from my perspective, I mean, it's just bodies. Like, you can't see the individuals, you can't see the faces. Like, the thing I noticed the most was Dylan Dennis's blonde hair. That did stick out among the pack, but for then it just was a chaos, a swarm of so many people intermingling. It looked like punches were being thrown, pushing, shoving, cops trying to get in there. It was just absolute madness. So it was hard to digest exactly who was where, but of course you saw Khabib jump over off the ringside, lift right into the crowd, and you knew he was in there, so it was madness.
Yeah, for what we understand, and we've seen several camera angles since, of course, camera phones everywhere in that arena. We've seen a lot of angles. I mean, Khabib certainly jumped at Dylan Dennis and some of the other members of Team McGregor. And then, of course, two UFC fighters, it seems like Islam Makhachev and Zubair Tukhugov, jumped into the cage and went after Conor McGregor as well. So, there were kind of two scenes of combat happening, and really, a mad scene. Now, there's a lot that can happen moving forward. Steven Morocco, you actually spoke to the Nevada State Athletic Commission briefly. They're reviewing tape. They got a lot of investigation to go, but give me a general sense of what we're looking at here right now. It seems like Conor McGregor's been cleared of any real wrongdoing, but in the meantime, Khabib Nurmagomedov's $2 million paycheck is being held. Where do we go from here with the commission?
So basically, the Nevada State Athletic Commission collected footage from the UFC and from a litany of sources, is what Bob told me. They're going to start their investigation tomorrow. They're going to review all the footage, determine who's at fault, who is going to be in that complaint. They're going to draw up a complaint. That's going to get sent to the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office is going to represent the commission in a hearing against whoever is the subject of that complaint. And then they're going to determine basically what sort of sanctions are appropriate. Bennett will have a recommendation that he can make, but ultimately the decision about what happens, how Nurmagomedov and his teammates do or don't get punished, that's going to rest with the commission, and I suspect we'll probably see that in the next month or two.
Yeah, so there's going to be two separate processes basically taking place. The commission is going to have their say, then of course Las Vegas Metro is going to have their say as well, because I think what we saw there was not just something that needs to be regulated by sport, it's something that's regulated by criminal code as well, correct?
Well, from what I heard from Dana, Conor declined to press charges. So I'm not sure what the criminal side of this is at this moment. I'm not sure. I mean, it's certainly civilly, we could see some stuff. The water bottle incident at 202 press conference created a little bit of a fallout from people getting injured as a result of Conor's actions. So I wouldn't necessarily rule that out at this point. But I'm not sure exactly if we're going to see Khabib face any criminal liability just yet.
All right. Well, I think the key takeaway here is that it's not done yet. There's going to be quite a bit to unfold. Mike, let me ask you a question, because I think people are trying to figure this out, where to place the blame, okay? There's a lot going on. I mean, we saw in the building tonight, even in front of Press Row this evening, there were extra bike racks in front of us. There was police everywhere. We saw vehicles outside. We saw extra uniformed officers inside. I mean, there were people everywhere. The UFC took extra steps. But that said, people are pointing to the buildup, the charge, the emotion that was in this. This was not simple fight hype all the way across this. I mean, there was, of course, the infamous bus incident in Brooklyn. Then, of course, there was all the racial, nationalistic, religious undertones of the buildup to this fight. Family as well. Is there a place that you see that's easy to place blame and say, here's where it all went wrong?
I mean, it's got to be Khabib. He was the one who jumped out of the cage and decided to do that. Someone asked Dana, it was, I believe our colleague Martin Rogers, who asked him about, ideally he would have gone and shook his hand and helped Conor off the canvas and showed some sportsmanship. We knew that wasn't happening. Habib even said, is there a possibility, someone asked about the press conference, is there a possibility you guys shake hands after this? They both said no, this is never over, and it seems like even more so now. It's got to be him. He's the one who made the choice to jump out there. If it wasn't for him doing that, there wouldn't be everything that happened there. If he was just in the octagon, he doesn't need to shake Conor's hand, but he can go just say his piece. If he wants to yell at him after the fact, get in his face, we've seen that happen plenty of times, but go get your belt put on and, make it a real ending to like we'd normally see. So it all started from him doing that. I know there's a lot of personal feelings, a lot of things were said. Habib mentioned that at the press conference speaking to us after the fact, but still, you are a champion, you're a grown man, you gotta have a little more common sense and a little more better decision making.
I think that's it. I mean, in much the same way we criticized Conor McGregor earlier this year with the bus incident and said, listen, he basically lost his mind for a second. I think that's what we saw here with Habib as well. I mean, he basically just snapped and made a horrible decision. He did apologize briefly at the post-fight press conference, but then as soon as he finished the apology, he went on to say, well, let me explain to you why it's not necessarily all my fault.
According to him, he said it's the media who has made the sport this way, where it's not about, I don't want to be about trash talk, I want to be respectful, that's what martial arts is all about. He was saying all that stuff, and he's like, the media has made it, so apparently it's our fault.
Well, listen, I mean, there's blame to place around, I guess,
Sure.
but Habib definitely made a poor decision this evening. You can't take that away. I mean, no matter what you try to justify it with, he made a bad decision. Steve, I want to ask you one last thing. I think a lot of people are now saying, here, how many eyeballs were on the sport this evening? Is this a black eye? Is this a bad thing for the UFC? And what's your take? Because earlier this year, I feel like we said the same thing in Brooklyn. We saw this footage of Conor McGregor, the sport's biggest star, and we thought, gosh darn it, boy, this is terrible for the sport. This is horrible for MMA. And what we got out of it was, a multi-million selling pay-per-view. Is this different?
Whatever the resolution is going to be, I think people are going to wonder the degree to which financial considerations are a part of the resolution. Because we thought that this event in April was going to be had some really serious repercussions for Conor. Dana certainly made it seem like that. And then again, like you said, he turned around and made it a part of the storyline. So it's fair for us to make the assumption that might happen here. It's fair for people to think that whatever happens, it's going to be driven by money, and that if they do a rematch, it's going to be the inevitable result of this, ultimately exciting story that's played out on so many different levels, between these guys. So I think it's. I don't know what Dana's going to do, but it's definitely another really interesting part of the story.
Well, and for me, everyone was watching this fight tonight, right? So many different people. After that happened, my phone absolutely blew up. Some messages from people who I haven't spoke with in like years, messaging me on Instagram, this, that, and the other thing. Like, you're there, like, this is so crazy, this is terrible, all this different stuff. So like, it clearly reached a level not just beyond mainstream.
Oh, so you're saying
fans.
it's a good thing?
No, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying it's the reaction didn't seem positive to that. It was just like, this is crazy. I think everyone's just seeing it and digesting it, but those replays are going to be shown for a long time. I think the fallout of it, what spilled over after the fight too, like, I don't know if some of those videos that were coming in, the fans fighting outside the arenas and stuff, I saw some dude get like cheap shot knocked clean out in one of the videos that was maybe outside the arena or in one of the hotels or something. So like, this had, people got hurt because of this whole thing.
And that's a bigger problem in my opinion. The professional fighters I worry about less, the people that are involved outside of it, the people who didn't ask to be in a fight, the people who may have gotten hurt as a result of a fight happening outside of the arena. That's what I think is more concerning, because we can't have this happening like on the regular. To a certain extent, people are going to look at this, they're going to say this is the fighting sport. These guys are barbarians. There's a certain segment of the population that go, of course this happened. But this can't continue to happen especially when innocent people are involved.
Yeah, well, listen, it's a damn shame, to be honest with you, because it was a great performance by Habib, and it was a great card from start to finish. And there's a bunch of storylines that hopefully we'll get to next week, that hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about, because they were fantastic. There were some great fights.
Derek
but right
Lewis,
now,
man,
all anybody cares about is Habib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor and what comes next. And there's not going to be any quick answer to that. We'll see it play out in the weeks and potentially even months to come. Stay tuned to MMA Junkie, where, whether we're still in Las Vegas or not, Mike Bond, John Morgan, Steve Morocco will all work together to keep you up to date on all the latest news.